Developed by Turtle Rock Studios and published by Warner Brothers Games in 2021, was that of Back 4 Blood. An alien parasite, through circumstances depicted in the game, infects most of the human race. Global civilization breaks down and naturally collapses as a result. A year after the initial outbreak of the infected, humanity is struggling to survive. Through the story depicted, a group of characters are eventually caught up in a situation to save what's left. Walker, a former member of the United States Armed Forces; Chris, nicknamed Mom by the other characters due to her being a caring figure as well as the oldest of them; Holly, a young woman who speaks bluntly about situations; Evangelo, an over-eager young man who lacks experience but has courage; Hoffman, a man who lacks any real social skills; So-yeon, nicknamed Doc due to her experience as a medical student; Jim, an experienced outdoorsman; Kali, a realist and loner. Later expansions had new characters added for players to act as: Hang, a survivalist; Charisse, a former firefighter; Dawn, a self-proclaimed religious figure; and Tala, a former member of a cult. Key developers at Turtle Rock Studios also worked on the pivotively successful series Left 4 Dead, as Back 4 Blood was considered to have been a spiritual successor to the Left 4 Dead franchise. From information now known, nearly every detail of Back 4 Blood was meant to be a modernized interpretation on the Left 4 Dead series. However, one of the main features of the game was what developers called the quote-unquote game director, which was an artificial intelligence system within the game that determined levels of the game that modify the environment, placement and behavior of enemies, where items would appear, as well as their frequency of appearing, and difficulty of obstacles in reaction to the player's progression and talent of gameplay. Developers had originally intended for this to ensure that the game had an aspect of replayability, and to ensure that players' experiences with each level would be nearly a completely different experience each time they were to play a campaign. This did not happen, as the game was reacted to neutrally to negatively by critics as well as gamers as a result. The gaming dynamics were steep, and casual players were often matched with more serious players, which led to a skill imbalance during gameplay, and especially during more difficult levels there were many instances of players leaving the game due to the difficulty. The deck setup of strengths, buffs, weaknesses or drawbacks were also complex and difficult to get correctly for higher tiers of play. The Cleaners, which were the group of characters, were specifically intended to have more death than the characters of Left 4 Dead, and even then they were somewhat reacted to positively or negatively depending on the players experiencing or using the characters for a campaign or playthrough. The experience of the game sharply divided players, and even after updates or patches and even fixes, there were still mixed interpretations or opinions of the game. It ended up being so divisive that in early 2023, Turtle Rock Studios officially stopped support for the game, and nothing new in terms of characters, lore, or major fixes would be done to Back 4 Blood. As the game had no further official content, it just divided the gaming community further even then on the legacy of Back 4 Blood. A character could be overrated yet hated because they were clearly meant to be legacy-based characters, but opinions were divided on what exactly the type of legacy the characters were meant to have.